Hey, it's Liz D'Alto, and this is the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untamed the Wild Soul Woman is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. Elizabeth D'Alto here with a quick announcement / invitation for you. If you are listening to the podcast here in real time, it is Monday, December 14th, and just yesterday on Sunday, I kicked off a free 12-day course called the 12 Days of Untame Yourself. The purpose of this course is to help you have a powerful and intentional finish to 2015 and head into 2016 with a lot of clarity, purpose, and soul alignment. And the way we're doing that is I'm taking a deep dive each day in a 15 to 20 minute video lesson that will elaborate on the points, the practices, and the stories in each chapter of my book, Untame Yourself, Reconnect to the Lost Art, Power, and Freedom of Being a Woman. So I'm going to be broadcasting every day live on Periscope, if that's an application that you use. And if it's not, enter your name and email at untameyourself.com/12 days. That's 12 days. And you will get the daily lesson and the video emailed to you each day. And you'll be able to watch those videos through December 26th. So enjoy that little bonus before the end of the year. And now for today's show. Elizabeth D'Alto here, your host for the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. Today's guest is someone super, super special to me. So at the time of recording, I actually just had the distinct pleasure and honor of being with her in London, more specifically Glastonbury, just last week. And so this is Lisa Lister. Lisa, I don't remember how we originally connected. I know we were following each other on Instagram. I remember during Cyber Monday in 2014, I'm pretty sure you bought some malas that I was selling. And then you were in spring session of Wild Soul Movement. And it was during that spring session that I discovered that Lisa does this not just incredible, but really needed work around the, let's just call it blood work, because that's what it is, helping women understand their menstrual cycles, and not just from a scientific standpoint, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, cyclically, as in the cycles of nature, how this affects your body. And her book is called Code Red. It's super brilliant. It's been very inspiring and really helpful for me and tons of women in Wild Soul Movement. I think, I don't know who has not read your book in our community at this point. I've recommended it all over the place because I just feel like it's crucial. This is the type of information that we should be learning in health class in middle school and in high school. And it's just not. And it's very, very, very valuable to a lot of what the focus of this podcast is, which is reclaiming and redefining womanhood. And a big chunk of that is deprogramming and deconditioning ourselves. And there's so much that we get to dive into today with Lisa. So welcome home, girl. Thank you.
Woo! I'm excited to be here.
So I know you listen to the podcast, so you already know this question is coming. And I can't wait for your answer. What do you love about being a woman?
And do you know what? I really wanted to prepare as well. I was like, yeah, I'm going to prepare that bad boy because that question is so important. I think the one thing, and it does reflect straight back to everything that I talk about, and that is we bleed every month and we don't die. We bleed for like 5-6 days. We don't die. We're freaking powerful, you know, and that is just like such a underestimated power that we have as women. That moment when we bleed is our death and rebirth. You know, we get to die and we get to be reborn every freaking month as women. So we have this internal map that means that we get to. Yeah, well, we have an internal map that means we don't even have to read self-help books anymore, to be honest. That's what I love most about it, is that this map will take you full on through your life and become this amazing unfolding each and every month of who you actually are. So, yeah, the fact I bleed is my best bit about being a woman, I think.
And I appreciate that so much because I'm sure there's a lot of women who listen who that's probably one of their least favorite things about being a woman, because for so many people, it's been a traumatic experience. whether when they were growing up, they had an incident where they like bled through their pants and it was embarrassing, or whether they have painful cramps, or, you know, all the various things that go on, which I know you're so familiar with. So how, if a woman is listening and she really struggles with her menstrual cycle, especially during the bleed time, other than reading your book. So I'm just going to put it out there. Everyone just get Lisa's book. It's called Code Red. Get it on Amazon. Get it on your Kindle. Get the print copy. Go to her website. Download all the things that go with it. Just get the friggin' book. But we're going to talk about it anyway, okay? What would you say to someone who actually hates it? Who hates it and feels like being a woman is such an inconvenience because of that?
So we've been conditioned, right? So society has been conditioned to think that our menstrual cycle is an inconvenience. You know, it's something that we medicate, that we, and so of course we're going to be in a position where if there's pain and discomfort, we're going to be like, what is that about? And of course that becomes something that we blame ourselves for, and then sorry, let me think. Because it's way more important than that. You know, it's way more important than just the physical pain and discomfort we're feeling. This is a societal belief system that's been put onto us that this should be something that we ignore, that we should medicate, and that we should not enjoy because it's our power source. Yet we do not know that. Yeah, we've not been taught that. This is the, you know, our pelvis, that whole area, that whole womb area is our place of power. Yet we're not taught that anywhere. So of course, when we get these cramps, when we get this crazy heavy bleeding, we think this is a curse. We were taught that it's a curse. There's advertising, you know, that the Tampax adverts, the all the brands have got versions of it. You know, you should just keep going and keep moving. That's not what our cycle is about. You know, our cycle is this incredible mechanism that encourages us to use our masculine and our feminine, to understand that for a certain part of our cycle, we can use that masculine raw energy that's so familiar out there in the outside world. But then there's this feminine energy that we are definitely not taught about. You know, this is the stuff this is where the pain will show up, because we don't enter that space, because that's where we're being called in. So the whole, you know, that whole outward masculine energy is out there. But actually, when we're being called in, which is that whole time of premenstrual and the menstrual phases of our cycle, that's when the shit hits the fan, because we've got no mechanisms. You know, we've got no mechanisms to deal with why is, you know, this pain and this discomfort and this hatred towards this part of our cycle, is because we're not connecting, and we've not been taught how to connect with our feminine energy in this body at that time.
Yeah. So I would love, can you walk us through, so for anyone listening, and this was huge. So two things you touched on there, specifically about like the premenstrual and the menstrual phase of the cycle. When I read your book, I was like, oh man. And I know not everyone is going to be able to have the flexibility that maybe you and I have, because we run our own businesses, and we have the luxury of being able to just like take the first day or two even of our bleed to just like rest and slow it down. But even if you're not someone who could do that, because maybe you have kids or you have a job that you actually have to go to, like a 9 to 5 or some other kind of where you have to go be in an office or a place of work, maybe it's like you take an hour for yourself, or maybe you just acknowledge and you let the people around you know, like, hey, today and tomorrow I might be a little bit slower, or maybe you just don't put as many things in your calendar on those days. And that's just specific to the bleed. But it was important for me to learn that, to structure my life around and actually realize, even around like physical movement. So I might have planned an intense workout, but if I get my period, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that day. And I've noticed, because if I do, then I'm so much more drained and in more pain. And so can you walk listeners through, and again, just get the book because it explains it in much more detail, but for the purpose of just the podcast, can you walk us through the 4 phases of the cycle and just like the general overview? what's good to focus on during which part and all that. I always think of, ovulation in the book where you say, I'm the queen of freaking everything. So give us the rundown in whatever order feels good to you.
Okay, so let's start with the bleed. So that is day one. So when we bleed, not the spotting, but like the full bleed is your day one. So that is your winter. So we're going to look at it in terms of the seasons. That's your winter.
I love this.
And there's also, we can also map this with the moon cycles too. So this is the dark moon. So the moment we start to bleed, that dark new moon phase that we, if you work with the lunar cycles, you'll get that's the time when we kind of go inwards. It's also when, for us, our veil between the spirit world is at thinnest as well. So for me, at bleed time, so this is bleed time, this is dark moon, this is winter. This is a time when we are called deeply in, but when we are able to kind of open up so beautifully to the divine, so if you are in any way open to these downloads, man, that stuff can come through at this time. This is what we were meant to do. Our wombs are our oracle. They are, you don't even need oracle cards. You can just use this womb that's yours, and you've got access to it all the time. So this is a time to come in, and like Liz says, yes, rest if you can, rest. But if you are, I totally appreciate people have to do like 9-to-5 jobs, and that's cool. If you do, just slow down, just take it slow. If you do workouts in the morning, don't do a workout that day. Honor yourself. And it's really about that honoring process. So this is like, I don't know, days 1 through to 6 or 7. And these are broad brush strokes because everyone's cycle is different. And that's totally okay, by the way. So then from the winter, we move into the spring. And so in that winter, it's dark, and we come into this new energy. So we become like maiden-like. We become fresh. Everything's new. There's potential. This is the opportunity to plant new seeds. And so this is true of the seeds. It's true of the lunar cycle, which is that waxing moon when the moon's just starting to grow. And it's also true of our menstrual cycle. It's this really great opportunity where our energy starts to rise. Our hormone levels are starting to pump higher. We can do more. We have access to more energy, but don't rush, because sometimes there's a real inclination in that crossover between our bleed and between that springtime to really rush into spring, because that looks way more appealing than that bleed time. But yeah, so be very aware. Then we go into ovulation, which is the full moon, which is summer. And so the spring and the summer are masculine. They're like that big, deep in-breath. They're full on. You can be out there. So we're in this ovulation phase. We're in this full moon, powerful energy. And like Liz said, this is when we're queen of frickin' everything. Like, we think we're Wonder Woman, because generally we can do anything. We are capable of doing anything at this time. This time would be a great time to do interviews. It's a great time to schedule in, like if you're doing podcasts like Liz, this is a great time to do it. And if you're the opposite way as well, it'd be a really great time to speak out, because you're sociable, you want to be around people. So this is that. So those two are the masculine, and then we come into the autumn. We come into the premenstrual phase. We come into that waning moon, and that's when we realize that we're not queen of everything. Yet we try to maintain the same levels that we experienced in that spring and summer. We try and maintain those same energy levels, but we physically do not have them. We don't have that. We don't have the capacity to do and push and to strive, and as we did in those two phases. So actually, what our body is naturally doing is pulling us back in. So we've been out there in the world. We've been of service. And actually now we have to come in and fill the well. We have to come in and really start to nurture and look after us. Now, this isn't taught, so if we don't know this, what happens is we keep going, and then this is when the pain, the discomfort will show up like massively, and cause also, and this is where yes, and it's also where your critic will show up too. So this is a great time to edit. So, in terms of, online work, and I don't know if you're writing a book, it's a great time to edit, but also be totally aware that your inner critic will be crazy loud at this time. So if you're noticing that maybe you started an eating regime, like you could drink juices and you would like exercising every day back in your spring, when it comes to now, and you're trying to maintain that, and you can't, this is an area where we would normally, that's where we kind of start beating ourselves with a stick and go, see, we're rubbish, we can't do it. I can't, look, I can't even maintain this eating regime. I can't even do this. It's like, no, you're not meant to. You're not meant to. In each phase, there's an opportunity for us to really look at, okay, what's my superpower in this phase? What's my superpower in this phase? Yes. And then what's my and as we see that, and so and as we move back into the menstruation, we've kind of coming straight back into that place where we can let go and release, because that's what that whole premenstrual phase is about. It's like really editing, like, what do I need to do in my life anymore? Do I need this anymore? Can I let it go? What needs to be released? And so we invite that to rise, and then when we bleed, we release. And we release that for us, and we release that for all of womankind as well. It's big shit.
It's huge. And I love when you said the superpowers in each phase. That was the most valuable thing I took from your book. I am always curious about more ways and more, because everyone's different, right? So this might really resonate for some people, like, this is the thing I've been waiting for. And for some people they might not be into it, and that's fine. Some people it's astrology, some people it's a personality test like Myers-Briggs. I don't care what it is. If it helps you to understand yourself and accept yourself more, get on board, woman, right? And this, I feel like, is one of the most universal things, because this is something all women share. Now, we probably have some listeners, not probably, I know we do, who are no longer menstruating, and I know you mentioned this in your book too. How do you continue to honor these cycles even when you're like pre, peri, in, and post menopause?
So our menstrual cycle, so at menarche, that first moment when we bleed, that's our menarche, that's our initiation into womanhood. What's going to happen then is throughout our menstruating years, we are unfolding, and we are constantly, with every bleed cycle, opening ourselves up to learn about who we are. It's a really beautiful mechanism that allows us to do that. So when we get to menopause, actually, we are in our power. That's when the real priestess shit happens. like society just I can't even sometimes.
Yeah, actually, this hurts me, right? Like the whole, I'm interrupting you because I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, me too.
Last year, it wasn't even last year, it was 2013. I started to get this craving for like a crone in my life, like a wise old woman to school me on like the wisdom of being a woman. And I don't, our culture, and I know you're in the UK, I'm in the US, I think this is worldwide. No, it's probably not. There's probably some indigenous cultures that really still really honor the wisdom of old women. And I don't mind just saying it like that. Like, old ladies are the fucking bomb, right?
Fact.
So much
Actual
wisdom,
fact.
so much knowledge, so much experience. And unfortunately, because our culture, perhaps they might not be as physically beautiful anymore, depending on what you see as beauty, discounts them. And I know women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they start to feel like they're disappearing. And so I just want to hone in on this as Lisa is saying this. You are so valuable. Like, you're so important for our culture. You have so much to add, and we need you. We need you. So I'll step off my soapbox and let you keep going on that. It's important.
No, it's an amazing soapbox, because that's the fact, because that's the whole point. So we favour that maiden and mother area because we're useful, so that when we're even looking at the cycle of our menstrual cycle, that that mother and maiden area is useful to this outside world. Yet when it comes to that autumn phase, which is actually when we're like our most creative, and we're like wise and wild and all of those incredible things, society gets a bit freaking fearful. like everyone gets a bit scared of what might happen if those women actually stood in their power, which is what always used to happen. These were the wise women. These are the women we would go to for our advice, for to be nurtured, to like, what do I do next? They were the oracles, because do you know what? They had bled. They had done their bleeding. They had done their unfolding. They had done all of the work because it is work. Actually, your menstrual cycle is work. And it can be the best work you ever do. But this, coming into that kind of wise women where we kind of reach menopause, should be revered.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next step, in terms of how, like, we need to understand this, and then we need to understand the power of that. So sorry, your question was, what happens when we reach that space? Know that you're freaking powerful for a start. Know everything. Know everything that all of us bleeding women are learning, every phase of the cycle, all of the superpowers that come up, so we can go, oh yeah, in our spring phase, it means that we can start new projects and be really kind of initiatory. And in our forming, we can manifest. Do you know what? When you've reached menopause, you can do all of that any time. And your job then is to do that for the bigger world, for the bigger picture. Your energy is out there. We're still working on this inward cycle, whereas when you're in menopause, you're working on it out there. You're a priestess. This is the good shit. So sorry, yes, in answer to your question, use the moon. The lunar cycle is incredible for that, because you are working with that outside energy. Actually, you will be feeling the energy of the moon way more, in terms of that cyclical energy. So like right now, we're just coming into that darker moon energy. So you would really be coming inwards at that time. So just chart with the moon. In my book, I have charts and things you can print off and all of that good stuff. But yeah, feeling your energy in tune with the moon is the most powerful thing you can do in terms of when you reach menopause.
I love the extra tangent that we went on through that question. It was really important. So I have a question. This is, I believe you touched on this in the book, but I want to take a bit more of a deeper dive into this. Something else about our culture around menstruation and all these phases and cycles. Our culture does not really honor the rites of passage as I never like to use the word should, but as would be really beneficial for us. To us being women, to love and trust and accept ourselves and really honor our bodies as the amazing vessels that they are. So, and I know you're someone, because you and I have talked about this, we've now experienced some rituals together in Glastonbury. What kind of rituals might you recommend, or resources for women, and tell me if I miss any points? It feels like, of course, that first bleed, right? Young girl, first time. I think after that, it's probably getting pregnant, if that's a path somebody chooses, birth. And then after that, is there anything between birth, if that's a choice, and menopause?
Not in the work I do, but I think that rituals should be like totally a part of all womanhood. And I think so in Lady Landscape, which is a program that I run, like we do an online menarche ceremony. I didn't have my first menarche ceremony, so my menarche was less than celebratory, and so I didn't have I wasn't celebrated when I bled. It was a bit of an inconvenience. And so that sets our path. It sets our path for our bleeding life, but because at menarche, that's when the seed of our purpose comes to realization. It's almost like we step into this womanhood role, and we are able to then understand what we're here for. Because it's not ritualized, because it's not celebrated or supported, that's not an option. So actually, when I had mine on my 32nd year, which was like 21 years after I started bleeding, but actually it changed my life, because you can do this. You can do this for yourself, and there's lots of gorgeous rituals you can do.
one that I've done is to find a stone from the place that I live and put my blood on it and did a beautiful ritual and then placed it into the earth that's my home so that I came home to it every time. So there's a reminder for me that I am home in this land, that this is my land, and actually I have power here as a woman. That's just one ritual.
That's super beautiful, by the way. And I just understand. I could hear the wheels turning and the judgments happening for some women listening going, you want me to do what? You want me to put my blood on a rock and bury it? So here's the deal. If it's not for you, don't do it. But if you feel curious, this is one of those moments to give your thoughts a little bit of a rest and to tap into your body. So take a deep breath and actually consider it. Does that feel like something true or that would be meaningful to you? Forget every freaking worry or judgment that someone might think you're a weirdo. You don't have to tell anyone you did this. You can tell us, right? You can send us messages, or maybe you have a girlfriend or someone who would support you and be down. But this is something so personal and so for you. Do not worry about what anyone else would think. If it feels true, if it feels nourishing, especially if you're someone who, for a lot of people, our parents didn't know how to handle that menarche, that first period, like coming into womanhood. And in some cases, it was like terrifying to them because they were like, oh my God, now she's a woman. She could get pregnant. It could have been traumatizing for them for God knows why. So we could forgive and bless however they reacted. But I love this idea of using a ritual to reclaim that experience and almost rewrite it for yourself. Yeah. That's really beautiful. And so anyone listening, don't just write it off as weird. Consider that it could be extremely healing and nourishing for you. Okay, keep going.
Yes, reclaim. Yes, reclaiming is what it is. It's us reclaiming our power back as women. So I invite you to get as weird with this as you
get
you
weird.
Want, actually.
The weird, something I say all the time. I'm like, the weirder the better. What else you got?
Absolutely, bring it. I think as well, I hadn't even thought, because it's become so much part of my work now, that the idea of actually touching our blood is still weird. But get used to that. That's yours. That's freaking gold.
Yeah.
This is your power source, people. This is so powerful. So anyway, yes. So there's that ritual, but you can do it. You can keep this as low key or as ritualistic as you want. But all I'm asking is that you honor that move from being a girl into womanhood, because if you don't, you'll take on so many of those childhood female traits that we are ingrained with. So for me, it was shit money management. I was rubbish with money because I still was acting from a place of being a girl and expecting other people to help me. And I played a victim for a long time, in regards to money, in regards to relationships. But that all changed at my menarche ceremony, because I was like, dude, I'm stepping up. I'm taking control. I'm taking my power back. I am reconnecting. And I think that is the key. When you said the reconnection word, that's what this is all about. It's about us reconnecting and remembering.
Yeah.
Literally coming back into our bodies and realizing that is happening in here right now. And this is our map of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then there's the birthrights as well. I think we don't celebrate women enough when just keep going until probably the 8th month, and then you can maybe have a little bit of time off before you give birth. What? Seriously, we there's so much beauty in that. And if you choose not to be a person that, if you choose not to have a baby, or if you're in a situation where you're not having a baby, ritualize anything that you give birth to. I write books. I haven't given birth to a baby, but I've written books and I've created businesses and I share stories and whatever it is that you give birth to, celebrate it, honor it, honor it.
Yeah, this is so great. And I know you and I were talking about this, and in this moment in time, we're both a no on whether or not we want children. And it's a choice. And I know this is something that is hotly debated for just such a sensitive topic. because for the reason that you mentioned earlier, in our menstruating years, one of the things that society had placed the highest of value on women to be able to do is have babies. So
Absolutely.
as a woman who doesn't, and by the way, if you have, just because I in this moment don't want children doesn't mean that I begrudge anyone the choice. I love my friends with kids. I actually love so much that they made that choice because I still get to play with babies, you know, and see and like experience that kind of motherhood vicariously. But like Lisa said, and there's no hierarchy here. We're not saying this is better, this is worse. Like we honor all choices here. There is birth and there is creation that aside from children here. So I love the idea of honoring that and also ritualizing and celebrating. And there is something else though on that topic. Yes. So to have that ability, maybe, right? Because not even everyone can have children, and to not feel shame if you can't. Yeah. And to not feel like you have any less value than any other woman on the planet because maybe that's not something you're equipped to do. Maybe there's a big reason for that. Maybe there's something else that you need to create in the world. And that's why you can't have children, because your energy needs to go into something else. And I think our culture still is very, very old school around this. There's still so much judgment and so much shame around the choice or the not choice, the, you know, whatever it is, injury, illness, a situation for a woman to not have a baby. And then like you're saying, just not really not enough admiration, reverence, respect, and support in place for women who do choose to use their body to make another person. Like it is it's so magnificent. And like you said, people are like, oh cool, get your maternity leave, come on back, bounce back. Or you're expected that like your body can bounce back and all this stuff. And it is just ridiculous in our culture. And you can tell I get fired up about this. And I know you and I both, we work with a lot of moms, and moms are just not, they could use some more loving from everyone, from culture, from society. And instead of being like, it's your fucking job to do everything. You make the people and you take care of them too. And that's a pretty blanket generalization. That's not everyone's life experience, but it's still prevalent enough that it really pisses me off.
High five in that.
High five in that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the problem. So that when we come into menopause, there's actually like, so if you have birthed a baby, you're knackered. If you haven't, then you're punished because like, well, what were you here for? And so we get to menopause, and it's just like, oh my goodness, that's it. I'm really worthless. I'm really worth nothing, because at no point have we been celebrated our rites of passage as women. So yeah, like let's start. And it really does, it can be as woo-woo or as really simple as just like gathering your girlfriends, bringing pictures of yourself when you're kids, maybe just saying, look, let's just have a glass of red wine because that's a nice thing to do, and let's just talk about that time. You know, let's just honor that in us. And if that still feels weird, then literally just, I say, find the picture of you at that age. And if you haven't got one, just literally close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, and literally just take in some deep breaths and just ask for a moment to reconnect with her. And just ask her what she would have wanted at that moment in time, and what can you give her now to move forward. And if that's too woo-woo, then I don't know. Because
I don't think it is.
This is too important. This is too important.
So important. Honoring there's nothing woo-woo about honoring yourself. If you feel like it's woo-woo, it's really only because of our culture being like, no, don't do that. So that shit should be normal. And that's one of the reasons for this podcast, because we're making it normal. Really firing me up here. So something, again, let's stay on this topic here, but go in a different direction, because I know you do some, let's call it non-traditional, for lack of a better term, work with women around fertility, right?
Yeah, so I again, that's very ritual based. It's massage, it's somatic, it's sound, I do like whole days with women, around their fertility. So if women are struggling to have babies, if that's something they've wanted to do, we spend a whole day together, and we will move our bodies, and I will massage you, and then we will do some gorgeous ritual together, and we will really come into understanding that actually, if it is a baby that you're wanting, and for so many women it's a real want, and it's real like desire for them, that actually it's about in creating a really nourishing space for that soul to come hang out in. That's the goal. Not I want a baby. It's let's make this beautiful area, and this is true for everyone, not just women that are having babies. We need to just make this area as fertile and nourished as possible. Like, we have to talk to her. We have to tell her that she's even there. We have to remind ourselves that she's there by movement, by wild soul movement. I do she flow. It's like all just anything that's gorgeous and puts us back in this body and wakes up this gorgeous creative energy that is within our hips.
I love that point, because I think, and this is where, again, culture and conditioning really is damaging, because if you're raised as a woman to not super honor your body and you have no idea how to connect with it, and then it comes time to want something like to get pregnant and you can't, well, if you've not spent any part of your life honoring your body, and then all of a sudden you want it to perform this amazing, intense task, that's a little out of balance to me, to not give any like love and attention and want to connect with that area and just expect it to do what you want it to do. That's a very cultural, I think, lopsided, shitty expectation to have. And I don't mind being a little confrontational about this and challenging women. Like, who do you think you are to demand something so intense of your body without loving on her first? Like, like, if someone else actually treated you that way, if this was like a partner who was treated you, like ignored you, and then all of a sudden wanted you to do something like paint the house, or, something, not that painting a house is even close to having a baby, but I'm just trying to think of something like intensive, like labor work. You'd be like, no, hell no. Like, why would I do that for you? So to understand that, of course, sometimes when you can't get pregnant, it's because that's how your body's reacting. Your body's going, we've been together for decades, and now you want me to do something like this with no love? Get it together. So it sounds like that's kind of what your ritual like brings the woman in alignment with. Like, you got to love on the body if you want it to do this miracle work, right?
For sure. And as well, we have been taught that what you were saying earlier. So the second we start to bleed, it's like, shit, you might get pregnant. Yeah, and it's actually to be scared of being pregnant. So let's put you on the pill. So let's medicate you. So let's keep that all numb.
Let's fuck with your body's natural rhythm for years on end.
For 1 minute. Yeah, let's not for 1 minute pay attention to what your natural rhythms are trying to tell you and show you and unfold for you each month. No, let's just repress all that. Let's just keep you all numb, and numb to being a woman, numb to understanding anything below this point. And instead of it, or that it's just there for sexual pleasure and not generally yours.
Right.
So I think that's that's a big deal, for some of the women that are coming regarding the fertility. It's that they've come off the pill and they just don't understand. Like, so I've been on the pill for like 20 years and now I want to have a baby. Why is it not working? And
because you've been training your body for 20 years not to do the thing you want it to do now. Like, just take some time. So be compassionate with yourself, right? Like, be so loving and be so nourishing. God.
Compassionate, loving, nourishing, exactly those words.
And by the way, this isn't to say, I just want to reiterate, like, we are fired up and we both have strong stances and we're pretty much on the same page with this. But if you're listening and you're someone who is on birth control and hasn't given yourself a lot of love and care and attention, we are not making you wrong. We're just inviting you to consider other things if they feel good, right, and true for you. And if they don't, keep doing what you're doing. Again, though, just a big purpose for this show is to give you another menu of options if you've discovered that the choices you've been making cause you suffering or cause you struggle, with your body, especially like this very intimate piece of being a woman. So what else feels important to you on this topic to share before we before we go? And I'm in no rush, by the way. I feel like I know you, like you have stuff over there, so I want to give you the freedom to flow.
I just want us to know that when we pay attention to our menstrual cycle, it is that ultimate act of self-love. So if we can connect with our monthly cycle, and we can come into that masculine energy, and we can support and encourage the feminine energy to be there, and that's going to take a lot longer, by the way. So, and then there is no rush, but just to understand that there is a piece that we have been conditioned to completely ignore, to work through, to make that the area that we work in the most, and actually show ourselves some big love there. Then what can happen is that we can fall into a beautiful rhythm of love with ourselves. So we can be out there, we can do the stuff. No one's saying like, oh, we're harking back to old times where women, we can do it all. Women can do it all. Yes, we can. But you know what? We break if we do that.
Right.
So how about we love ourselves? How about we cycle with ourselves? How about we understand that we are cyclic and we're not linear? And that's actually a good thing, and the fact that we show up very differently in each phase of our cycle. So what I might think in my pre-ovulation week, I will think very differently about in my premenstrual week. And you know what? That's okay. And that's being consistent is not necessary to be a woman. And in fact, it's an actual, for me, it's like, I'm not consistent, and that's totally a fucking good thing.
Yeah.
And I support and encourage other women to not be consistent, and for that to not be another stick that we beat ourselves with. So like what we were talking about earlier in terms of the eating, for example. So many women will start eating like, I'm gonna start green juicing every day, I'm gonna do this, and then when they'll start that in a certain part of their cycle, which is generally, if they were to chart, they would see that generally that happens when we come into that new energy after our bleed, when we feel revitalized and we're ready to take on the world. And then actually when we come into that premenstrual phase, it's like, oh, I can't do this, don't want to do this anymore, oh, I'm a bad person. And then we take out that big stick and we beat ourselves with it, and like I'm rubbish at this, and I failed. No, it's just understand that each phase has its own beautiful, beautiful power that you can tap into. And when you do tap into that, you can show up like as you in each phase, and it will piss people off around you. We live in a very linear society, a very straightforward thinking, must do, must strive, must get shit done society.
Yeah.
So this will be challenging. It'll be challenging to do. It's been very challenging. It's challenging for me to sit here and talk about it. I get caught up and shut down all the time, but it's too important for me not to.
Yeah.
It's too important for me as a woman not to talk about this. Through my own experience and through the experience of the women that I work with, I know that when we can just remember and reconnect, we can fully be in reverence of ourselves, our bodies, as women.
Another thing I really love about your book, so if you're a woman listening to this and you date men, and if you don't, like if you date women, like you and your partner, read the book for the love. But if you date men, there's just a little 6-page chapter in the book towards the end that Lisa's husband, Rich, wrote. So you don't have to get your boyfriend or husband to read the whole book. Just get them to read Rich's 6 pages, where he just kind of describes the male experience of understanding the female rhythm, the menstrual cycle, and what to look out for and how to prepare. And what's really beautiful about being able to share that with your partner and educating them about your cycle is that then just a lot of that shame and judgment, or feeling like you have to pretend you feel a way you don't during a certain part of your cycle that's just not natural for you, you don't have to put on any airs, and they'll get it. And they'll just have at least the vocabulary that you could be like, hey, I'm premenstrual right now. And instead of just having that same like societal, oh, PMS, you're a crazy bitch this week. Like he'll be like, oh, like he'll get it, perhaps want to like nurture you, care for you. Maybe you'll be inclined to be like, hey, like I'm going to be bleeding probably in the next couple days. So like, I'm going to take it easy. If you could just be like light and sweet and like lovely with me, that'd be amazing. And it also gives you a reason and a voice to ask for the type of support that you might need during various parts of your cycle, whether that's from your partner or anyone else. Maybe it's at work, right? Like you can remind me there will be a phase of the cycle where perhaps your brain might be a little more jumbled, where like you might not be as organized. So that might be a good week to be like, hey, I'm in what phase is that?
So that's just going from premenstrual to menstrual.
Okay, so premenstrual to menstrual, that might be a good time if you work in any kind of environment to at least let the people on your team know, like, hey, maybe it doesn't feel professional to be like, hey, I'm premenstrual right now, but to be like, hey, it's a rough week for me. Like, do you guys mind handling like the detail-oriented stuff? Just take it off your plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Rich, like him knowing it, he says this is like the best thing that has ever happened to him in terms of being able to be in a relationship, because that understanding that on day 25 of my cycle, which is in that premenstrual phase, that he needs to just like throw chocolate at me from a distance, because he knows and realize that it's not his fault. Like what happens in this body, we push down so much anger, like any kind of emotion. As women, like we're pushing it down and we don't want the world to see that we can't function. Whereas in this body, she gets angry. And that's okay as well. So to be totally okay with that, and for him to know that it's not about him, is like, it's just him like, perfect. All right, cool. Let her rant, let her do whatever she needs to do, chuck chocolate from a distance, and then know that he in a couple of days' time, I will be like that super like, oh, can we snuggle? Can we cuddle? Can we watch a movie together? And then he knows in a week's time I will be on him, and that's good too. And I just think he knows when we have an awareness of that, we can have some really incredible conversations about being a woman, but also about being in a relationship and about understanding how we show up.
Amazing. Well, all right. So I've said it 100 times, but the name of the book is Code Red. Get the book. What's the best website for them to visit for you?
Amazon is good. You can do Kindle and you can do paperback. Just through Amazon is good.
Oh, and what about your website?
Sorry. Oh, www.thesassyshe.com.
Thesassyshe.com. As always, I love you so much. This is so great. This is such an important conversation. So for people listening, I hope you took at least one thing out of this that made you, feel better, trust yourself, accept yourself a bit more about this very intimate thing that so many of us don't have a great relationship with. So Miss Lisa, you are the best. We will talk to you again. Bye. So this brings us to our last excuse, I'm not ready. And the answer to this one is short and sweet, because whenever people tell me I'm not ready, I always ask them, how will you know when you're ready? If you're getting ready to be ready, that's also kind of a waste of time. Most people's replies when I ask them, how will you know when you're ready, are vague. They say, I'll just know, or I'll feel it. But they don't have any basis for that. They don't know what ready feels like. So how will they know that they're going to feel it? What if they are feeling it? How do you know if you don't know?